This is going to be a hard one. I get questions from people about raising children in Japan. Okay. So I got to give some context. It's hard for me to answer for two reasons. One, I've been divorced twice. And so I sort of co-parent my children. So I'm not with them 24 hours. I see them on the weekends. Now that two of them are grown, I don't see them at all because they got their own lives, and they hang out with me. And my 19-year-old wants to be in one of these videos, so maybe you'll see her next week. But and on top of that, they're also my first three children are half Japanese. My children now are both black, I guess, born in Japan, very Japanese in certain ways and very Western, Jamaican and American in others. And so my children aren't necessarily representative of a typical Japanese kid or a typical American child. So I'm not going to speak on, I'm trying not to be general. I'm just going to be specific, okay? So my first child was born 21 years ago, almost 21 years ago to the day. And she was when she was born, I was like, okay, what kind of, bullying is she going to experience in her life, right? What is she going to go through? And I thought about sending her to the international school. She had just been born. I'm thinking about how do I make money to send her to international school? This is back in 1999, right? And, the solution was, let's let her, and as parents, when you're a parent, you can be very irrational because you're worried that the slightest thing is going to kill your child. It's going to penalize them in some way that is going to ruin them for life, right? Looking back, it's silly, but it's true. Most parents, we feel this way at some point. We're a little irrational. And so, but, I said to myself, we grew up, they should be okay. Let's just see what happens. Let's have them go through the typical Japanese system. If they have a problem, let's send them to international school. What I observed in my children was that they felt different. They weren't necessarily hazed any more than other children were. They were hazed, all kids are to some degree. They felt different, etc. But as I was watching it, like my daughter got a certain age, the boys have interest in her, but the interest, small boys, they pick on girls they like in a very, it's weird. I remember doing it myself, though I liked girls from a very young age, so I didn't do a lot of picking. I was trying to get them to kiss me, to be honest, but I know that feeling. You like a girl, you don't know how to communicate that emotion, so you pick on them, right? So there's some of that. She wasn't sure whether it was race or this or that, and it's really hard to figure out, why people are picking on you, etc. She experienced that. My second child didn't experience that very much, at least as far as she said to me. She's experienced some. A lot of it she didn't tell us. But she just felt different, right? She felt different. There was this different feeling. So I spent a great deal of time talking to their mothers about getting them abroad in some way, shape, or form. My 18-year-old has gone abroad. She lived in Canada for 2 years, so she's now come back and she's excited and feeling great about life and herself and love and everything. Much more confident now that she's gotten out of Japan and seen a little more sort of diverse people and stuff. She feels more confident about herself. My 16-year-old, she's 17 now. My 17-year-old is quite Japanese in the sense that she seems to fit in. She has a birth defect, not a birth defect. It's like she has elephantitis of one leg. She used to do ballet, but then it started to swell. She couldn't do it anymore. So she couldn't do ballet. And I thought this has really hurt her, but she has great friend relationships. She plays in a band. You just can't, your children amaze you sometimes by their resilience. You can, as a parent, I've learned that the only thing I can do is provide opportunity, listen to them, and just support them in whatever they do. And I found that they're alive, they're surviving, and it's worked. But the difficulty I've faced as a parent in Japan, what I always worried about was that Japan's incredibly safe. In part of their upbringing, their history is outside of Japan, and I want them to feel close to that, especially not just for the reason they need to know it. If they don't want to know it, it's their right, it's their life, not mine. But if they feel a little left out, if they feel like something's missing, I want them to have the opportunity to understand that. My 16-year-old, I think at some point, sent me CDs of DVD series of Roots. She was like, I've been watching Roots, Daddy, and movies like 12 Years a Slave, etc., on her own. Right? I never told her to watch these things. So, kids, just like kids who are adopted, don't know their birth parents. They want to know where they come from. They'll do it. They'll do it on their own if they have the opportunity to do so. So, parenting in Japan, in general, at a high level, has just been a case of providing your children with opportunity when it comes. They can study abroad. Great. My oldest child has done several studies abroad through her theater programs and through winning scholarships and stuff like that. And you support them to do those kind of things. They'll find a way. They'll really find a way. In the specifics, though, about schools and things of that nature, what we found, especially with the smallest two children, they come from a primarily very Western household. It's all English in the house, except, we have them watch Japanese TV to help with their Japanese. And so they're allowed to be a little bit more of themselves. There's not a lot of, asking them to adhere to a certain type of behavior or regiment other than Jamaican mom kicking butt from time to time. So the teachers, for instance, there's a lot of pressure we put on the teachers to understand and sympathize and empathize with the challenges and the difference accepted in the diversity of our children. And they've done their best. They've done their best. I gotta say, they have really tried their best to support us and to support our children. So, it wasn't easy, meaning, when you, especially being in Japan, if you say something, you're going to be that foreigner, that person, right? That person who's going to rock the boat. But ironically, people want to help, right? Especially I think a lot of times teachers as well, because teaching doesn't pay a lot. A lot of people who are teachers, they want to be teachers. They want to educate young people. And if they feel there's a need and there's a way, there's a need there, a student needs a certain need and needs a certain thing, and the parents ask for it and it's necessary, you find that good teachers want to help. I remember once there was a teacher for my 19-year-old, and the teacher was bullying her. I don't know if the teacher was aware of what she was doing, but my daughter was probably the only half child in the class, and she was different, and the teacher had treated her in a way that was kind of humiliating to her. So I went to school straight from work and told the teacher I need to speak to her, and I spoke to her, and I said, you need to treat my daughter differently. Right. I sort of implied I'd beat her ass. I mean, I'm always smiles and stuff, but, I sort of implied it's unacceptable. But I sort of explained that, this young lady has issues regarding identity. She feels isolated because she's different from everyone. And for you to point her out and treat her in a way as an example is unacceptable. You're breaking her spirit, and I will not allow that. Right. I would literally, being an irrational parent, pick up the teacher and throw her from the window, But it's those type of things that I think as a parent or as someone who's trying to help not only their children, but children that come after, there's going to be some heavy lifting, right? You're going to be the first to say things, the first to ask for things, the first to push for things. But rest assured, I've seen lots of PTA meetings. I've seen lots of city council meetings. Japanese people push, right? If they want something, they complain, especially if they know it's a safe place to do so. All you're doing by being that person who speaks is creating a new safe place, right? That others will then use for their own needs, etc. You're sort of like the pioneer, the blast shield that allows other people to walk through. But the specifics of raising children, if you have questions, by all means, I try to answer them. But just to help out, what I'll try to do is have their mothers or my wife speak on this. We'll maybe do a podcast or something. But raising children in Japan is a practice in letting go. Right, your children are intelligent. creatures. They'll figure things out on their own. They have their own motivation and drives, and they'll learn from them and help them be their best selves, right? Additionally, there's going to be times where you have to not be Japanese. Be yourself. If you are Japanese, great. If you're not, you're not. But what I mean by that, not be Japanese, I mean not be what you think the stereotype is. Be true to who you are. You have to, especially if your children are suffering. You only have yourself to blame if you're not willing to be yourself and do what you feel is right for them. And additionally, if there's opportunities for them to get out of Japan to see a different perspective, please let them do so, because there's lots of Japanese parents who want that for their children, but their children are conditioned or a little scared or frightened or maybe not aware of the opportunity. If your children have that opportunity, the opportunity that many Japanese would like to have, give them that opportunity. I don't think they'll regret it. So it's a little bit on Japanese parenting in Japan from a father's perspective, from a divorcee father's perspective with 5 children, etc. My perspective may not be yours, but there's just one perspective. Maybe you've heard others, and maybe they can all together help you and give you a better picture of how to address that when either with the kid you have now or in the future when you have children. I hope that's helpful. Take care. Talk to you tomorrow.